continuing our exploration of the various Baldur's Gate character classes, jumping in with the Undead Hunter. Now, in the scope of the game, it's a role-playing game, and this is based on the Dungeons & Dragons, or I should say the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons narrative, and in replicating a role-playing game and really building out the various character classes, some are better implemented than others, because Baldur's Gate does an excellent job of simulating a role-playing game environment, but at its core, it's just a massive, massive decision tree modified by success or failure. How well do you roll on the D20? How much damage do you do? Do you go left or do you go right? So what that means is certain class kits are better implemented than others. And certain kits are very themed, but does that theme work over across the entire game? Previously, we explored, and I pushed up to the Baldur's Gate Tactica checklist here on my channel. We were looking at the Undead Hunter and how one could make the argument that theme has been so well implemented, and it's one of the more powerful, I won't say most, but it's up there, top 5 classes that you can play in the game, because it universally works across a wide spectrum of encounters and possibilities. So how does the Undead Hunter stack in? And as always with these vlogs, we're going to build the checklist. I am going to stay away from naming specific magic items, specific encounters, and specific decision trees, because I want you, if you haven't discovered it yet, to discover it yourself. So much of the game is that discovery narrative. The Undead Hunter. All right, you've got the hit bonus, and you've got the bonus to dealing with undead. So right away, that's nice, because that bonus, much like some of the other classes, in this case against undead, that's a permanent stack. So you have your base modifiers working on strength. You have your damage modifiers based on the weapon itself, which is swingy, right? 1d8, 1d6, 1d12. And then you have, of course, bonuses for magic, +1, +2, +3, or other type effects. The more pluses that you can stack in D&D, and the more pluses that are consistent across that spectrum, the more damage that you will do consistently across every single turn. And against undead, this is very, very useful. The +3 hit is also interesting because a lot of undead, or I should say the undead that are going to give you problems in the game, beating down zombies and skeletons, that's baby cakes. Some of the more powerful undead, they're, depending on when you encounter them, because again, Baldur's Gate doesn't railroad you in one direction. Depending on when you encounter them, their armor class, their THAC0 is a little bit lower than you would like. So having that boost, especially if you're themed Undead Hunter and you have some of the magic items that are useful against undead, that stack gets pretty potent before you even virtually roll the D20. And that's nice because, again, based on their undead, unholy status, the armor class tends to be a little bit lower. That's a nice little boost. You're also immune to hold and level drain. So hold and level drain. Hold is nice. Just there are a couple of encounters that are going to spam that out, and it's kind of annoying when you're frozen there because you're down a party member, especially with your character being the focus of the encounter and the focus of the story. We want to keep them up. But the level drain is really, really nice because there are so many encounters that when you face certain undead monsters in the game, they're hitting you with mad level drain. And it's not so much the damage, but it's the fact that you can take I don't want to take any hits, but you can take 2 or 3 level drain hits and then you're killed. So often what you'll see in these encounters, assuming you work through the fodder and the minions, is you can't really send one character up to fight, because they might be able to physically take the damage. And again, the Undead Hunter is a subclass of the Paladin. You can take those hits, but in the level drain, it kills your character. So you rush all the characters up, hopefully to spread out the level drain hits, and if someone takes 1 or 2 hits, you move them back. Being the Undead Hunter and being immune to it, you can just go up and tank. And again, having this pool of hit points, certainly some of the Undead hit very, very hard, but you've got a nice pool of hit points that you can slug it out based on how the AI works, grab the aggro of that Undead. And fortunately, some of the more powerful Undead, there are dualities and triplicates that you fight, but a lot of them are 1-to-1. So you can tank directly, be immune, then bring in your other fighters to pound on it, and then have your support characters also hit from that. It makes Undead encounters much, much easier, because it's one thing to have your NPCs get killed and deal with that. It's a pain when the main tune dies, when your main dies, because that's it, the game's over. And if you're playing a hardcore solo run, that's out. But even if you're not, sometimes these Undead fights are very tough and you just squeak by. And there's nothing worse where you're winning the Undead fight and then all of a sudden just you're about to win and then they hit you level drain and you're dead. So it's nice to have that buffer. Okay, the class itself is very, very themed. I mean, literally Undead Hunter. So these special abilities of the class kit, they're naturally, and this is no real surprise, they're naturally only going to really work against undead encounters. There are a few in BG1. There are numerous ones as you move on in the game. So if you're looking just for a BG1 role, it's not going to be as exciting. But if you're looking to play through the whole game, the Undead Hunter does have that narrative. The Undead Hunter does have a lot of that fun, and you can play it out and really, really enjoy it. Really, really enjoy the role-playing aspect. But again, these abilities that you are paying for by not being able to lay on hands and not being able to do some other things, the offsets, you're only going to be able to utilize the undead, the anti-undead abilities against undead. It's not like some of the other class kits that these bonuses that they have for the class carry over everywhere. So in terms of a themed character, yes, potent in very, very specific situations, but that does rank the character a little bit higher, in my opinion, the class, simply because there are some very, very iconic fights where you're going up against undead. And if you're familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, or more specifically Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, in the game, in the narrative, in the universe, there are some very, very, very powerful undead to face.